My voice shattered like glass as I stared at Rachel across the kitchen table, my stomach twisting into a tight, nauseating knot. She didn't even blink. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped a steady rhythm on her coffee mug, her face serene, too serene, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "I used it for the wedding," she said, shrugging as if we were debating spare change. "Mark needed help with the costs and it's family money. You'll get over it." "Family money?" I choked out, my voice climbing higher. "That was my money, Rachel. I busted my ass waiting tables for 2 years to save for college. You said you'd invest it for me. And I did," she shot back, her tone sharpening like a blade. "I invested it in something that matters, your brother's wedding. Her son, Mark, not my brother by blood, just the golden child she'd always put on a pedestal. To him, that over-the-top wedding with its lavish venue and flowers that probably cost more than my entire tuition was worth more than any dream I'd ever dared to chase." My blood boiled. But before I could fire back, my dad shuffled in, coffee in hand, frowning. "What's all this shouting about?" "Ask Rachel," I snapped. "She blew my college savings on Mark's wedding." "I'm Sarah Carter, 19 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my stepmom Rachel has ruled our house like a queen on a chessboard. My real mom died when I was 10 and by the time Dad remarried." I was so desperate for some shred of normalcy that I clung to any hope Rachel offered. But she made it crystal clear from day one. Her priorities were Mark and herself. I was just background noise, someone to glance at over dinner but never worth a second thought. When I landed my first job, I started saving every dime. Tips from late-night shifts, extra hours on sore feet, all of it went into my college fund. I dreamed of studying nursing at a local university, a goal my mom had whispered to me as a kid. Rachel loved preaching about financial smarts, so when she suggested investing my savings to grow them, I bought it. I trusted her. "Big mistake." "I don't get it," Dad said, scratching his head as Rachel brushed past him, clearly done with me. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know until now," I said, my voice shaking. "She swore she'd invest it, but she dumped it all into Mark's wedding." Dad's frown deepened, but I saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. He hated conflict, Rachel's secret weapon. "I'm sure it's a misunderstanding," he mumbled weakly. "Let me talk to her." "A misunderstanding?" I exploded. "Dad, she admitted it. She doesn't even think she's wrong." He had no comeback, just muttered something about work and bolted upstairs, leaving me drowning in the wreckage of Rachel's betrayal. She'd stolen my future, and Dad was too gutless to call her out. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, my fury hardened into something solid. I wasn't letting her win. That money was mine, and if Dad wouldn't fight for me, I'd damn well fight for myself. The next morning, I dialed a lawyer I'd found on a crumpled flyer at the library. "I need to know my options," I told him, spilling the whole mess. "It's my savings. I earned it. Can I get it back?" "Maybe," he said, calm and steady. "If you can prove it was yours and she spent it without your okay, you've got a shot. But it's not a cakewalk. You ready to take this to court?" I hesitated. Suing my stepmom felt like declaring war. But what else could I do? Rachel wouldn't back down and Dad wouldn't step up. "Yes," I said, steel in my voice. "I'm ready." When I broke the news to Dad about the lawsuit, he looked like I'd punched him. "Sarah, are you sure?" he asked, pacing the living room. "This'll just stir up more trouble." "She already stirred it up," I shot back. "Dad, she stole from me. This isn't about family, it's about what's right." His shoulders sagged, and for a split second I thought he'd take my side. Then Rachel stormed in, her face twisted with irritation. "So what's your big plan, Sarah?" she sneered. "Drag us all through the dirt over a few grand?" "Real classy." "It's not just a few grand," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "It's my future, and I'm not letting you stomp all over it." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Go ahead, kid. You won't win." That was it, the moment I knew there was no retreat. Rachel thought she could bully me into silence, but she'd underestimated me. With my lawyer's help, I filed the suit and started digging bank statements, pay stubs, anything to prove that money was mine. It wasn't just about the $8,000 anymore, it was about clawing back my dignity. Refusing to let her define my worth. Filing that lawsuit felt like jumping off a cliff into the unknown. I wasn't just challenging Rachel. I was shaking the shaky foundation of our family. Dad started avoiding me, hiding out in his workshop whenever I was around. Rachel, though? She turned it up a notch, leaving snarky notes on the fridge like, better luck saving next time, or tossing barbed comments my way whenever we cross paths. But I didn't flinch. The court date was set for 3 months out, and I had work to do. My lawyer, Mr. Daniels, was a steady guy in his late 40s, a pro at small claims battles. We need hard proof. He said at one of our meetings, show the money was yours and she used it without permission. Got any records? I slid a folder across the table. Bank statements from my job. And a note I wrote when I gave her the cash, asking her to invest it. It's not fancy, but it's something. He nodded, scanning the pages. Solid start. I'll subpoena her records. If she spent it on the wedding, it'll show. The weeks before the trial were a pressure cooker. Dad barely spoke, and when he did, it was to second-guess me. Sarah, he said one night. Hovering in my doorway, you sure about this? Rachel's livid, and you know how she gets. She's livid because she's busted, I replied, eyes glued to my laptop. Yeah, Dad, I'm sure. She stole from me. He sighed, raking a hand through his thinning hair. I just don't want this to rip us apart. I looked up, anger flaring. She already ripped us apart when she decided I was disposable. This isn't on me, it's on her. He had no answer and shuffled off. But my friends kept me sane. They rallied hard, especially my bestie. Mia, you're doing the right thing, she said over late-night coffee. She had no right and she's gotta pay. What if I lose? I whispered, fear creeping in. What if the court picks her side? You won't, Mia said fierce. You fought too hard. And even if it flops, you're standing up. That's what counts. Her words fueled me when doubt hit hard. This wasn't just about cash. It was about finding my voice, proving I wouldn't be shoved aside. As the trial loomed, Mr. Daniels dropped a bombshell. Rachel's subpoenaed financials showed more than just my $8,000 gone. She'd been siphoning cash from Dad's joint account for years. Fancy trips, designer bags, stuff Dad never knew about. This isn't just your savings now, Daniel said. It's a pattern. If we used this, it could blow her wide open. I reeled. I'd known Rachel was selfish, but this? I wrestled with showing it in court. It had crushed Dad. I don't know if I can do that to him, I told Mia the night before. He deserves the truth, she said softly. He's been blind too long. Maybe this wakes him up. Trial day hit like a freight train. I sat in the courtroom, nerves buzzing, while Rachel sat across, cool as ice, her lawyer whispering in her ear. Dad was beside her, looking lost. He wouldn't meet my eyes. When the judge walked in, I locked onto the facts. Daniels laid it out, my bank records, the note, Rachel's spending spree. The evidence is undeniable. He told the court. The defendant misused my client's savings for her own gain, ignoring her stepdaughter's trust. Rachel's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming I'd gifted the money, but Daniels dropped the financial records like a mic. The room went dead quiet. Cash withdrawals. Luxury receipts. It was a neon sign of her greed. I stole a glance at Dad. His face went white, hands gripping the bench. Rachel's polish cracked for the first time. When I took the stand, I faced the judge head-on. That money was my future, I said, voice steady despite the knot in my throat. I trusted her and she took it. This isn't just about $8,000. It's about justice. I deserve to be heard. The courtroom crackled as the judge reviewed it all. Rachel's years of grift hung like smoke. She shifted, uneasy, her smug mask slipping. Dad looked like he'd been gut-punched. Mrs. Thompson, the judge said, voice like steel, you use Miss Carter's savings without consent, and these records show a pattern of self-serving deceit. Rachel tried to play it off, her voice smooth but shaky. Your Honor, this is overblown. I thought it was for the family. You spent $8,000 on a wedding and thousands more on yourself. The judge cut in. You call that defensible? Rachel stammered, floundering. Enough, the judge snapped. This is about accountability. My pulse raced as she delivered the verdict. I rule for the plaintiff, Miss Carter. Mrs. Thompson must repay $8,000 plus interest within 60 days. I also suggest a deeper look into her finances. Silence. Rachel's face tightened. Dad's head fell into his hands. Relief crashed over me, not just for the money, but for the validation. I wasn't crazy. I'd been wronged and now it was fact. Outside, Rachel hissed. You'll regret this, Sarah. I didn't waver. No, Rachel. You'll regret betting against me. Dad caught me in the hall, voice breaking. Sarah. I didn't know. I had no idea. You didn't want to know, I said, sharp but calm. You let it slide because it was easier. But this is what happens when you dodge the truth. He nodded, defeated. I failed you. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was something, a crack in the wall between us. Walking out into the sun, I felt lighter. The fight had been brutal, but I'd won. Mia texted. You crushed it. Drinks on me. I grinned, replying, hell yes. It wasn't just about the cash, it was about taking back my power. The days after were surreal. Rachel paid up grudgingly, then moved out, leaving a curt note. The house felt still, peaceful. Dad was quieter, sifting through the wreckage of her lies. She fooled me, he said one night, staring at her records. You tried to warn me. You can still fix it, I said. Start by listening. I dove into college plans, the $8,000 a lifeline to my dreams. Nursing school loomed bright. A future I'd earned. Dad pitched in. Hesitant but genuine. I can't undo it, he said. But I want to help. I took it, not out of need but because he was trying. Months later, I stood outside my dorm. The red brick walls, a promise of what I'd fought for. Dad helped me move in, fumbling boxes and apologies. You sure you're set? He asked, lingering. I'm good, Dad, I smiled. Thanks. He nodded. Pride flickering. You've earned this, Sarah. College was everything, hard, thrilling, mine. Every textbook I cracked open, bought with my money, sparked pride. Dad called Sundays, checking in. Rachel and Mark faded, irrelevant. I didn't need their apologies, I had my victory. One weekend, Mia visited, and over coffee she grinned. You're unstoppable, Sarah. After all that, you're thriving. She was right. I wasn't the timid girl anymore. I'd face the fire and come out forged, ready for whatever was next. My life was mine, and I was just getting started.